Hey, everybody, welcome back to Soul Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kian,
And I'm Gail Dargle.
and we are here to talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And earlier, we thought we would just jump right into the state of the world and what's going on. And I think it would be, well, it is important for us to talk about these things. And I'm so glad that we can hold this space and share this space together. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that I think Kian and I had a lot of ideas about what this podcast would be, not fully being quite aware of how much would be happening in the world. And to Kian's point, I think that it is important for us to not ignore what's happening. And so yesterday was the Super Bowl, and we got to have Bad Bunny as the halftime artist, which was absolutely incredible and sounds like unearthed a lot for
A lot of people.
a lot of people.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about that, and obviously its connection to what it takes to be authentic in a world that doesn't know how to regulate emotionally when others show up as their authentic self.
Absolutely. And I think diving into what is our capacity for discomfort
Yeah.
and what is our capacity for sharing space, especially as we discussed like earlier, just we are two white passing individuals and we are constantly growing and learning and developing insights and perspectives. And as such, I think it's important that we talk about what happens in our nervous systems and our society as a whole when space is shared. And I think we really witnessed a beautiful protest and songs in the halftime show, and these songs are really showing us what is it like, right, to show up authentically, to not edit, to not change anything, to not erase any part of yourself, and to show up in the most genuine and authentic way as possible.
It's so interesting because I think what we're talking about is something that we're experiencing on a macro level in our world right now, but also bringing it back to the micro, right? And how it starts off with that ability. And I think of Bad Bunny being able to say, fuck that. I'm going to sing it in my own language.
Yes.
And I'm going to show up.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell the story. And that's what I got to see, were all of these stories that he was telling in that halftime show, and how much we have to constantly fight a narrative, the cultural narrative, all of our ecosystems that surround us constantly. We have the world, we have our social circles, we have our relationships, we have our community, our culture, right? There's a lot of narratives that I think are always being pushed on us. And like I said, I think we're going to be kind of orbiting around the macro and how it's showing up in our world right now, and how a lot of people don't have the capacity to share that space, and how it's also happening individually for some people.
And as we look at really holding that space, we're also talking about unity. We're talking about not division, right? We're talking about how we are as a society, as a culture, together,
Right.
and allowing for other cultures to have space, right? Is such an important thing, because people get uncomfortable that are privileged with space and power and influence and a large voice when marginalized voices want to be heard, need to be heard, need to be felt, need to be seen. And so sharing that space can actually have a big impact on a nervous system that is not used to sharing that space.
Oh, let's open it up. Wow, there was a lot. There was a lot in there. So I'm having a reaction to that, and I'm thinking about, maybe we break this down a little bit and we talk about those individuals that don't know how to share space, those individuals that are so used to taking up space. And I think that would be my question to all of you, is to think about maybe that one person in your life, and I'm sure there's more than just one person, that doesn't allow you to maybe be whole and come into yourself, because that would require them to take up less space or share the stage.
Absolutely. And shifting and moving things around is not always easy, right?
Yes.
You think about like being in your bedroom, right? And some people are so uncomfortable with change, right? And there's even something in psychology called state-dependent memory learning, which is when you think about, someone experiencing a trauma or something difficult or an overwhelming life event. If they go into a room that they've been in and trauma occurred in that room, sometimes it's helpful for our brain to get a new perspective. And so with state-dependent memory learning, we're shifting around the room so the brain doesn't associate experiences and the hippocampus doesn't have a blur between the past and the present. So if there was trauma in that room and we look at a photo on the wall, or we look at, where the chair is positioned in the room, the brain remembers, the hippocampus remembers. And sometimes it stores memories that are associated with high levels of emotion. And so what we're experiencing is, on a massive scale, there's the bedroom, and we've shifted the furniture around. And some of these people are used to being in this bedroom where the furniture never moved. And it's just so uncomfortable, right? Because there's no capacity for the change and to bring in new pieces of furniture. This is a room that has always had this blue chair, and when all of a sudden we have new furniture, the brain doesn't know what to do.
It doesn't know how to navigate it.
It has no capacity to navigate it.
Which is interesting, because I think one might say, okay, well, we need to expand the room instead of looking within and thinking, okay, I need to adapt, I need to adjust, I need to reflect on how I'm showing up in this space in order to give somebody else more space to show up.
Exactly. And we're missing out on a room that can be adorned with other things. But these individuals who have this nervous system response, they're comforted by the blue chair, or they're comforted by, whatever it is in the room that's always been there.
The control. I think what we're talking about is the control.
We are talking about the control. We're talking about the power. We're talking about the, the safety of knowing that power will not shift. The safety of knowing that control won't leave. And people with these nervous systems are not adapted to sharing.
Yes.
Right. To sharing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we're on this next module right now. Like, let's really step into that power and control dynamics, right? And I'm sure all of us have felt that at some point in our lives, in some relationship or another, where it is always about who's right or who's wrong. And there's not emotion. Like, emotion cannot exist if that's the case, if it's about right or wrong or the control dynamic. How would you describe a control or power dynamic? I mean, I think there's some ways where it's easier for us to see that, where there's somebody who's of authority, but I'm talking about that power dynamic that shows up in relationships, couples. How would you describe it?
Well, I think of it in the terms of the nervous system. And it's really this idea of some individuals don't have the capacity for discomfort in their body.
Right.
They have a limited tolerance for discomfort in their body. And so when they experience that discomfort in their body, the easiest thing is to shut it down, dissociate, put your head in the sand, disconnect, de-identify, whatever it is, right? But the idea is, let's get rid of it. And this is happening on a larger scale. But if you think of a parent, for example, who the child says, you know, Dad, I just really want you to know that this thing you did when you were raising me, I didn't like it, and I wish that I wasn't as sheltered, or I wish that this didn't happen. If a father is unable to hold discomfort in their body, they're not going to be able to have any empathy towards this conversation. And they're going to want to shut it down. They're going to want to disconnect, dissociate it away. And the thing is that in this type of nervous system response, there's black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, right? And there's no capacity for that discomfort. So when we look at how a parent responds with that nervous system response, they're going to shut down any discomfort. They're going to shut down anything that says they're anything other than exceptional as a parent. Because in their mind, the trauma is saying you're all good or all bad. So if the parent receives criticism and they allow for the reality of the child to exist, they interpret that as, I am a bad parent. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's, oh gosh, there's so much here, right? And I want to go to two different places. One is what that's going to do for the child, but I also want to connect to how that's also happening in our world right now.
Exactly.
Right? Like, how can we have multiple cultures be represented at our Super Bowl halftime, right? And have multiple stories coexist also with the story of what our president is trying to bring into this world. And it's going to not land well because that person has no ability to hold two truths as coexisting experiences at the same time. So to speak to what Kian's talking about with that black and white nature is that two things cannot be synonymously or simultaneously experienced at the same time. So we have to shut one down, and that's what a lot of people are feeling right now, is shut down. And so when we think about what, now coming back to that child, right, we think about what is that going to do for their nervous system? What is that going to do for their core beliefs, right, which is what we would start to have about ourselves. And core beliefs are essentially our rules. It's the schemas that we now believe about ourselves, about relationships, and about what to expect from the world. So if I'm that child and I'm learning I can't express myself, then we're going to be looking at somebody who has to be self-abandoning.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of cognitive dissonance, right?
Let's bring it in.
So let's bring
her
it
in.
So
we love her.
cognitive dissonance, right, is when the brain is saying, you probably have heard this before from an individual maybe in your life, but it's saying, I want to support, or I do support this leader, but I don't support what he does.
Right.
And so that's the brain trying to make sense of one thing and connecting it with the other.
Right.
But it's really bypassing. So why don't you want to explain that?
Yeah. So I think about bypassing as a survival mechanism, right? Because if I had to learn in a traumatic environment that I have to supersede the negative that I'm experiencing in order to survive, it has become an adaptive method, in my thinking in order for me to sustain in this relationship. So I have to create a mental filter, essentially, in the way that I experience information and I perceive information in order for me to sustain survival or sustain in the relationship, sustain in the family dynamics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then one thing I'd want to add is you're really just you're looking at the brain, and it is responding by prioritizing being a member of the tribe, having the tribe identity over authenticity.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a part of survival when we really look at it.
Yes.
So there's a lot of fear-based thinking, fear-based mentality that is holding that up.
Yes. So essentially, authenticity equals abandonment. If I'm authentically myself, it's either one or the other. We're going to take a very black and white stance here, right? It's either I have to self-abandon in order to be connected to my tribe, connected to my community, connected to my family, maybe even connected to myself. Because maybe I feel more connected to myself if I feel like I am accepted by other people.
Or the version of myself.
The version.
That I've had to step into to be a part of the tribe.
To be seen.
Yes.
To
and
be
you're
respected.
Absolutely right. Because it's the self-abandonment piece. And it's really the brain saying, okay, I either abandon myself completely and the authenticity to survive, to stay in the tribe.
Yes.
Or I lose the safety of the tribe and I'm isolated. And
or I'm abandoned by them.
Or so abandoned by them.
I'm abandoning myself, or I'm going to be abandoned if I don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what a high stakes situation to be involved in, right? When it comes to what the brain is prioritizing, it's prioritizing staying in the tribe.
Let's go into that. I think that there's a lot of minutia that we could swim in, and we could think about a family culture. So like if we were to just kind of dissect a family culture, there's the rules of engagement, right? Like the terms of engagement that I think we all kind of grew up with. And I like to always, again, I'm doing the whole Gail thing where I want you to just take a second and think about that. Yeah. Like, what were some of your rules of engagement in your family? And I'm going to give a couple from my own family. It was for sure, like, figure it out. Go figure it out. Don't come to me with your emotions. You best figure it out. And I can say that that turned into intellectualizing, and I wouldn't be the Gail that I am today if I didn't have to analyze the shit out of my emotions. Right. Like I had to come in and I had to be able to have a solution to any problem that I had before I could bring it to someone.
That's so powerful, right? To just imagine that process and what that entails. And it makes me think of Dr. Gabramate, right?
Love him. Big fan.
Yeah. Because, he's talking about how if you don't learn to hold yourself in your body and your body's not safe, you can't sustain yourself in your body and you're so detached from it and disconnected and shut down and dissociated, you learn to hold yourself with your mind. You learn to intellectualize everything. You learn to impress your friends, your family, your connections. You stand behind your intellect because a child needs to be held.
Oh my God, he's talking about me.
Well,
I know. I had to bring some levity to it, but absolutely,
yeah, right. And it's like, and I'm talking about myself too in some ways, right? It's like we're all, we're all kind of navigating our own experiences of this.
Yes.
And then if we go back generationally, a lot of the time, especially in POC families, right? There's just survival. There's no capacity for emotional.
I can't even think about that. I'm not able to think about that.
No, there's no capacity for emotions, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's I need to get food on the table. I need to take care of my kids. And so you see there's, generations of people being raised with these types of dynamics.
Yes.
Because those parents were unable.
With different priorities.
Exactly.
So what was a priority in my family dynamic and my survival method was different potentially than yours.
Yes.
Was different from different families, and how that creates a completely different interpretive dance that they're doing with the world and the way their mind is perceiving things.
How they show up in the world, right? And it's really a lot of the time out of your control, right? We look at the unconscious,
yes,
and these patterns persist,
right?
You know, the patterns don't stop unless we address them,
yes,
and we bring conscious awareness to those patterns.
So true. And I think about that, right? So if we bring in the subconscious and we think about the body with the subconscious, and we think about how if I have been self-abandoning, right? And that's been my belief system, is that in order for me to be connected to my tribe, I have to self-abandon who I am in multiple capacities. Then I'm telling my subconscious that you don't matter. That's becoming now
repeatedly.
A belief repeatedly. So
Absolutely.
Every time I'm in a new dynamic and I'm hiding parts of myself, then I'm still getting that same message. Now that's not driven by other people, but now it's driven by myself.
Exactly.
And so that's what we're talking about when there's things now that we're doing unconsciously to say that, yes, subconsciously that is true.
Absolutely. And when we look at the brain, there's a neural pathway for everything, right?
Yeah.
There's a neural pathway for, this is how I tie my shoe in the morning when I get up. And how
That's
do we learn?
That's the 405. What's the next one?
So
605.
601.
How I brush my teeth. Yeah. The 210.
The 210. The I-9.
I know.
But there's that neural pathway, right? So when we think about the neural pathway, we're tying our shoe repeatedly over and over again. It strengthens the neural pathway. If there's been a neural pathway that's been created
for social engagement,
for survival,
yes,
that's been projected from the parent onto the child, that neural pathway can sustain itself without the parent or
feedback.
Without the feedback.
Yes.
And then we've got basically tying your shoe on autopilot.
Right.
And that shoelace is really strong.
Yeah. And that's what people are bringing in to coaching, to therapy, to their retreats, to their workshops, to work on, why do I keep doing the same thing that I'm doing? Well, because you're wired to.
Exactly. And then we look at something like emotional intelligence, and we look at when we look at the capacity of someone to get into emotional intelligence, to build that part of the brain, to connect the pathway or the highway between the language
405
the 405 between the language center of the brain and the emotional center of the brain, it's not super strong in some individuals
because it hasn't been scaffolded to.
Exactly.
We're talking about the scaffolding of the neural pathways, because if you weren't in an environment that allowed for you to verbalize your needs or emotional expression, then we're not going to have those connections made.
Well, and putting words to experiences is autonomy.
Oh.
Right?
Wow.
And so when we're empowered to put words to experiences, we have autonomy. We are saying, this is how I show up in the world. When we don't have words and that part is underdeveloped, we're often reliant on what we see,
or
what
other
we
people
experience,
tell us.
what other people tell us.
Yes.
We're outsourcing our safety all the time outside of ourselves instead of coming from within.
Oof. And then talk about a difficult feedback loop to get out of. Because if I'm sourcing my safety from other people, that safety and security is gone every time somebody is not in front of me.
Exactly.
So then I'm either disassociative, right? Or I need to numb and I need to use a substance to get out of my body because I don't feel safe. Or I need to go be in front of somebody, or I need to get into a relationship because that's how I will feel safe.
And I'm thinking about, object constancy.
Yeah.
object permanence. It's that child that did not get the safety and that feedback loop enough to sustain it without there being reliant on regulation outside of themselves.
So let's break that down a little bit, right? So we think about object permanence. We think about the developing infant, right? And one of the first objects that a baby attaches itself to is the breast.
Yes.
Is the caregivers, the breast, it's food. And could you break down a little bit of object permanency in any capacity, even if that's giving an analogy for it, in terms of the infant? Because when I think of the breast turns into the mother, which the mother then turns into the regulator, right? So Keen was using that word regulation, in that my needs will be met by you.
So the ventral vagal co-regulation that happens between a mother and child is the child surrendering to the mother to protect the child, and the child being able to rest in the assurance and the safety and trust that the mother will provide, right? We see this in relationships, in relationship dynamics between partners, right? Where trust is often broken.
Right. At some point.
Or there's outsourcing of the sense of self to the other partner. Or there's distancing, to regulate the nervous system. There's all types of ways, right, that this happens. But when we're really looking at that, it's really leaning into the trust and having that trust.
Surrendering to the fact that somebody will show up.
And how do we build that trust?
I think that trust comes from within.
It comes from within, and as we were talking about earlier, it's the repeated
demonstration that you will show up, or that you will listen.
Of reflecting our reality back to ourselves, right? If you have a parent that, you experience an emotional, something happens, right? Maybe at school, or something happens where it's challenging. That parent has the capacity to either reflect your reality back to you or deny you that reality, shut it down, and disconnect.
Yes, and you know what sucks?
Yeah,
I was literally just working with someone today, and it's just so difficult, because I feel like as therapists, we've been given the tool set to reflect. And, on this podcast, I think it's really important for us to always hold space for both. Hold space, because I think a lot of parents get a lot of flack. Right.
Yes.
And I think that, one, it's also very unfortunate, and that's what I think we're trying to break down, is we're trying to break down what it's like to be on the other end of the parent that doesn't have the capacity. And also this idea of reflecting back. And maybe we could do a little bit of an improv experience of what that looks like, because reflecting, I'm teaching people how to reflect back. I didn't know how to reflect back. I went to school and they taught us how to reflect back.
Yes.
Narrating. Oh my gosh, it sounds like it's been a really rough day. That would be reflecting. That would be narrating, summarizing what somebody is saying. And so if a parent isn't doing that, right? Because the parent is scared more often than not, and is worried and feels heartbroken that their child is going through whatever they're going through.
Yes.
They want to shut it down. They want to fix it potentially.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. They want to fix it.
Right.
They want it to disappear. They want to minimize it.
Because it's too much for them.
Exactly.
It's too much for them.
They can't hold it in their body or sustain the discomfort, right? When we look at capacity, there are people that want to do things, but then what is their capacity in their nervous system to do the thing?
I knew he was going to bring back the nervous system. Absolutely right. So I might cognitively be the mom that's like, I want to be there for them and I want to take this pain away, but my nervous system might be saying, get the hell out of here. The screaming is too much. The crying is too much.
Too much intimacy. Intimacy is wired with danger in some parents, right? And so immediately the brain says,
disconnect.
This is too close.
Shut
Closeness comes with taking away my autonomy. Closeness comes with losing the self. And closeness comes with being vulnerable. And I'm vulnerable to harm. So shut it down.
Right.
Don't go there. We're not going to talk about emotions. we're going to change the subject and move on, and let's talk about something else.
Right. And in reality, what we need to do is we need to dive into those emotions. We need to dive into them like it's a pull of Jell-O, right? Our favorite kind of Jell-O. But you know what I mean? Like
the best kind.
The best kind. Oh, and I was going to say cherry, but okay. But literally, we have to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Right? Like as a parent, you almost have to do the exact opposite and climb into the emotion with the child or the adult child that's experiencing it. Tell me more about it. Ask more questions. Do the opposite.
Curiosity. Exploration. Yes.
Now we might have some people that are like, well, what the hell, guys? You know, you're literally saying, listen to your nervous system. And what if my nervous system, so let's say I'm the parent, and my nervous system is saying, get the hell out of here. This is danger. But it's my child looking at me and they're having an emotional experience. How do I navigate that? How do I sustain this when everything in my whole body is saying this is dangerous?
And we do that by teaching the brain and the nervous system that closeness does not equal danger. And yes, it's hard, right? But leaning in small steps, asking questions, allowing for vulnerability, allowing for transparency, even if it's uncomfortable to talk about, right? But leaning in just tolerance. A little bit. And then maybe the next time, ask another question and see what it feels like to hold discomfort in your body. And over time, learning that it doesn't mean you're going to be smothered, you're going to lose your sense of self, or that you're a bad parent. This black and white thinking is part of that survival, right? We see this in parents. We've worked with parents before. And in a lot of these parents, not all, but a lot of them, that black and white thinking, that all or nothing thinking says, if I acknowledge any imperfection, I'm a bad parent.
I did something wrong because I could have changed it and I didn't. Like I should have known better.
Exactly, because they've wired exceptionalism in the brain. The brain is not concerned with a gray area. That's where the work comes in. The brain
because we're forming the gray area every time we put ourselves.
Us in the trenches, just digging away. But like we're creating that gray space. The brain is wired to assess for danger.
Hardwired. Right?
It is.
Like
it is. This is dangerous. No. This is not. That's all it cares about.
Right.
And when we separate ourselves from our brain, we can see, oh, no brain. You don't have to. This is not a situation where it has to be 100% this way.
Settle down there,
Settle
Betsy.
Down, right?
Like it might be what you think. This is the predictability. I think this is also when we're talking going back to the room.
Yes.
The blue chair,
yes.
right?
Yes.
The brain is wired to say this is danger, this is bad, and we need to really have that metacognitive experience where we can sift outside. We can sit outside and we can say, okay, I know that you're seeing this as the blue chair and the blue chair is dangerous, but it's actually not dangerous. It's actually okay. And so when we come back to that parent, right, a lot of their exploration that we would be working on with the parent is intimacy being wired with danger. That's their blue chair.
Exactly. Yeah, couldn't say it any better. And that's
because we share a brain.
Yeah, basically
Look at
share
us
a brain.
Over here.
Right, left,
Yeah. I'm sure that means something subconsciously between both of
probably.
us.
Could probably look it up or something later.
Ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that essentially is, and then it's like the brain in some people, as we talked about in the previous episode of Soul Recovery. Right.
Plug.
Product placement. Maybe we'll throw something in there.
Yeah.
But we're looking at the brain wired intimacy with danger, and in the person who experiences that, the work is learning that closeness doesn't mean I'm going to be smothered, doesn't mean I'm going to lose my autonomy, doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to have a sense of self. And the brain, in other individuals where the brain wired closeness with safety, the work in that is learning that space can exist and I'm not being abandoned. Space can exist and I'm not being left, right?
Yeah, it's almost like one person, the person that needs to be close, is needing to learn how to be alone. And know that that's okay, that they're secure in their relationship, they're secure in themselves. And then on the other hand, it's the fear of being emotionally dominated.
Yes.
Right? That I can maintain a connection and I can also have boundaries. I think that's a lot of it too, is that I will be able to have enough boundaries to not let anybody overpower me.
100%. And we can look at that in the terms of regulation.
Right.
People that have been labeled as avoidant, for example, they regulate their nervous systems by pulling inward and distancing themselves, getting that space to regulate themselves. Because if you go back historically, oftentimes they grew up in environments where it was not safe, right? And so that safety became internal. It was the only person I can rely on is me.
Myself.
So therefore, when someone needs me to regulate them,
Right.
that's anxious or, overpowering in these certain ways, I need
or
to
just
pull,
expressing emotion.
or just expressing emotion.
Right.
Exactly. Then I need to pull back and regulate internally.
Come back into my own world again.
And I need that space.
Back into the world that I created. We could almost see that as like an adaptation.
Yes.
Not necessarily as a fantasy world, but a way to disassociate from the external and healthy at that, right? Healthy at some point because it was exactly what that person needed, but it is now the very thing that's keeping them away. So if we bring this same, analogy or storyline back into the parent-child, now we have that same parent that's wanting to pull out of this emotional experience of the child when the child is really needing to be witnessed, really needing to be received by that parent. But if that parent has no emotional tolerance, and when I say emotional tolerance, I think of not being able to, or we could use this cup of water maybe, like my cup is already full. I can't tolerate much more water being poured in. Water being the emotions. So if we have a small window of tolerance for any emotions, then it's gonna push them over.
Exactly. And the intimacy too, right? When we look at warmth, like you look at someone who's anxious in their attachment style. We see these labels often. Someone who's anxious in their attachment style is going to pour on the warmth to prevent abandonment.
Right.
And this person who's more avoidant, right?
Doesn't have the capacity.
Doesn't have the capacity. Warmth is wired with danger, right? Reassurance is wired with danger. These types of things are going to overflow their nervous system, and then you see the pullback.
Right. It's almost like if we think about this water, right? Like the avoidant has already, they're self-sustained, right? That's what's kept them so safe, right? Because they've pulled back. They have their whole inner world, right? That has created a system. So there's not a lot of space for other people to be a part of that world. Or vice versa, if we have the more anxious person, there's not a lot sustaining them other than other people. So other people have to pour into them.
Yes. They need more and more water. And usually, we see in relationship dynamics is pour into me, regulate my nervous system, keep me feeling safe.
Right.
And we're trying to pull water sometimes from a place that doesn't.
Somebody who's avoidant, that's like, that stays inside.
I need that water.
That doesn't get poured. I'm thirsty.
Right, because if anyone's ever been in a natural disaster, we need have resources. We need resources, right?
And I can't trust anybody to have me other than me.
Exactly.
So I need to keep all of this.
Oof.
Yes. That was a good one. That was
Cheers.
Good. Yeah, we need both of us for that.
But yes, this is part of the soul recovery, right? And as we're kind of wrapping up.
Right.
We're
wrapping up. Here we are.
This is the thing is this podcast, Gail and I have talked about the soul recovery aspect. Part of soul recovery is getting out of these patterns. It's learning that there's a different way of being, and it's excavating the soul and pulling it back up to the top. And so that's kind of the intention that, we want to set for these episodes and
Absolutely.
the work we're doing.
Yeah.
But I'll let you speak to that too.
Oh, I love that. I think that word soul just has so much truth in it. And I think when we are born into family systems and we think about nature and we think about nurture and all of the dynamics that we're a part of our maybe I should say the creation of our lens, right? The creation of all those highways. It's really hard for the soul to exist when you have so many structures and so many narratives and so many rules that are trying to tell it how it's supposed to show up. And so I think coming back to, well, how do we find our wisdom, right? Like our true wisdom and our essence. And I think that's in the soul. And I think sometimes that lives in our bodies. And so how can we bring that which already exists in all of us?
Absolutely.
So recovering from almost like the mind.
Yes, and I love what you said there. It just speaks volumes to when we started the episode today. I think it was in the middle or in the beginning, something like that. We talked about intellectualizing.
Yeah.
And really we're learning to have safety in our body without being in our head.
Right.
With being present in our body, and the soul then emerges.
Because it can.
It can.
There's space for the soul to come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
So beautiful. Well, what a natural end. Thank you, Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
Because it all started with Bad Bunny.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your heart.
Yeah. And your soul.
Yes, your soul, and being so authentic and in your native language.
Yeah.
And talking about, this really important time that we're in.
Of being together and sharing the stage.
Sharing the stage. Yes. Let all our voices be heard.
Yeah.
And we thank you for joining us on Soul Recovery Podcast.
Soul Recovery. All right. Take care. See y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.